Good morning, everyone. Shortly to be afternoon in about an hour. Welcome to today's Live at the Waterhole show. It's myself, Kenneth Gamble. I'll be your guide for the session. We're starting off here at Lentor Lodge today. We've got a beautiful herd of impala ewes drinking and a few baboons causing havoc as always. Just a reminder before we start that it's a live and interactive show, so please feel free to send through your questions and comments. It's a wonderful extra dimension that it adds to the show, and hopefully we've got a lot of cool sightings today. I see to start off, these impala are very jumpy and alert. Makes plenty of sense. There are more than enough predators that hang around here at Lentor. We've got some sparrow weavers that have come in. The white-browed sparrow weaver and also looks like a grey-headed sparrow to my untrained eye. Actually put up a nesting box hoping I would attract some sparrows or other bushveld birds to nest in it, but up to this point I don't think I've seen any visitors, but they do say it takes a bit of patience before something uses a nesting box. I should maybe put some nesting material in to entice them. One of the joys of trying to cultivate a wildlife friendly garden. We're gonna head on over to El Doño. I'm sure we'll come back to Lentor a bit later. I see the starlings are saying goodbye to us, looking rather beautiful and splendid as always. Always a peaceful setting, or scene, excuse me, at El Doño. I'm sure I've seen this fellow a few times. Certainly quite unique with his damaged ear or floppy ear. But it would not be a normal day at El Doño without a visit from one of these pachyderms. Jabulani, you were mentioning how your grandfather said you can tell how close danger is by how high the impalas are jumping. High jumps mean the cat is still far, and low nervous hops means it's already too close. I think there's certainly a certain degree of truth in that. Obviously, when antelope are still advertising their strength or agility or health by jumping high, they feel comfortable. And yeah, more nervous or quick jumps might indicate they are very on edge and alert. Of course, the audio cues that they tend to give off, or the snorts, or that will also lead you to believe there is impending danger. But I guess in a comical way, if the impala start running, maybe you should also start running or getting out of there. Of course, never run in the bush, very bad idea. But yeah, if the impala bolt, then there is probably something afoot. Sorry about that, we just quickly hopped over to mantis. Had a bit of a connection issue with Aldonio. We've got our glorious unicorns here, mud bathing as always, and also a few of the usual zebra. And there's also a warthog sneaking out. It's funny, I've actually seen the zebra use the scratching rock more than I've noticed the rhinos using it. I'm sure the rhinos do use it, but it shows you everything benefits one way or another in the bush. LEPR, no, it's always nice to be here on a Sunday. I fear it may not be as exciting as last week Sunday with our lions at Safari Hook, but you can't always strike gold in the African bush. I'm also quite satisfied with all the sights and sounds. It's also very interesting to see how each location changes week after week. Nathaniel, you were asking, is there a difference between male and female elephants? Yes, of course there is. Obviously, for the most obvious one, their genitalia, that will be the most striking difference. But more normal ones that are not as obvious then would be the size. Males are much bigger than females. Males have a large, round-shaped head. Generally also have bigger ivory. Females are not known for having very big or thick ivory, generally long and thin and straight. Also quite a bit more of a, they say, box-like or square-shaped head. That's another indicator. I'd say those are your best bets really, if you want to look at overall size of the animal and the head shape. Kofi, you'd like to know if they ever feel the weight of their horns like we feel heavy hair. I think it's a feeling that they're always aware of, but I think it's something that that they're adapted to. That weight is quite constant, etc. So the muscles grow accustomed to it, and it becomes quite effortless. I must admit, I have not had heavy or long hair in many moons. In my younger days, a little bit, but generally my hair is quite short, so it's not a feeling I'm used to. But I do think it's something they grow used to over time, and it's kind of like wielding a part of your body. You're quite accustomed to it, and it's quite a gradual, as it grows the body also adapts. So I think it's quite a natural feeling. Liam, you'd like to know how fast a charging rhino can actually go. It's around about 40 to 45 kilometers an hour. That being said, it's generally over short distances. They don't maintain that for incredibly long. Of course, that momentum they build up, and if they enter into that trot, they're still quite quick, and you could be hard pressed to escape a charging rhino. You see, we've got a bit of territorial displeasure taking place here. So just looking at that body language, when a rhino curls its tail up like that, it's generally on edge or unhappy with the situation. We saw that quite immediately from both of these rhinos. I assume these are maybe two cows, possibly younger bulls, and that looks like a large bull that has come in here to the waterhole. So Move on just a bit on edge. Jensen, you're mentioning that this waterhole must be quite dirty. Maybe to a human it might appear quite dirty. Of course, to an animal it looks quite natural. When they're drinking water out of the dirt or a pan like this, that's quite normal for them. I think in our opinion it comes across as dirty. Once again, the brown color is just merely sediment that is stirred up. After a bit of time it does settle out and will be a bit clearer. But there's plenty of life abounding here. We see Egyptian geese, often it comes to an Egyptian goose, but yeah, these rhinos are not happy with this large bull that has come in. But yeah, nonetheless, we see wagtails that also feed on the edges, so there is a functioning ecosystem here. It just plays a role. Well, there's been a bit of a shake-up here with this large bull. We're going to head over to Serengeti for a bit before we possibly come back here. Our favorite bushveld jesters. I do love how these baboons here at Serengeti Explorer are quite willing to swim. It's not behavior that you see incredibly often. I don't think I've really actually seen baboons in the Kruger region ever really going for a dip with my own eyes. I think it clearly this speaks levels of their intelligence of when it comes to the presence of crocodiles and the safety of the water. Obviously these baboons are quite aware that it is safe to swim here. Well, it's quite far inland that they're not too worried. This is quite funny. This fellow is dipping his tail in the water. This looks like he's working a paintbrush. They are incredibly entertaining animals to observe. Certainly looking like quite a peaceful Sunday for these baboons here at Serengeti Explorer. Everyone's just milling about, chilling by the pool. It's actually quite nice when they relax like this. You can enjoy their behavior and their antics quite nicely. Tepo, you had a question asking if they have best friends the way humans do. I don't know if they'd call it necessarily best friends, but obviously within baboon hierarchy there are very close bonds, etc. One might liken it to a Game of Thrones almost. The alpha baboon will have close allies or male baboons that he relies on that will help defend the troop, etc. But of course these alliances can shift over time. There'll obviously also be some baboons that are very closely bonded together and spend a lot of time grooming one another. But yeah, I think we could in a way liken it to friends. Liam, you were saying everyone says baboons are clever thieves. What's the sneakiest thing I've seen one of them steal? Now, if I had to divide it, I would say monkeys are certainly the sneaky thieves. Baboons would be your brutal bandits, in my opinion. They can be sneaky when you're not looking, but I do feel baboons will actually just approach with brute force eventually. I've been on a trip where my wife's breakfast was stolen by a baboon that just jumped onto the table and took it. I've had camping trips where they've broken into the tent by either chewing a hole or just undoing the zip. Whereas monkeys are quite agile and sneaky for me. You turn your back for one moment and you won't even see them. On a camping trip, I once thought they'd stolen something from the neighbor. Meanwhile, it was one of our Tupperware dishes that they had stolen from us and were eating under a tree. But they are always watching for the opportunities. Certainly both very capable thieves. And just a reminder, these type of things happen in areas where humans and baboons or monkeys tend to interact. That's why a great deal of effort goes into in wild areas to stop baboons or monkeys becoming a nuisance in the first place, by stopping them from realizing there's a food opportunity and to maintain their natural behavior. You can see a bit of rough housing taking place with these younger baboons. Very funny, of course. A bit of discipline being instilled here. Just reminding the young ones who's boss and to cut their nonsense out. Oh, he nearly fell in the water there. I don't think there is ever truly peace amongst baboons. There's always some tomfoolery or roughhousing taking place. It can never be quiet for too long. But I guess we can also draw that relative comparison to us as humans, with children and youngsters at a gathering. Nathan, you'd like to know, well, you state that baboons use tools like sticks to dig for roots. How close do you think they are to figuring out fire? I don't think it's too normal that we often see baboons using tools necessarily. It's generally the odd chance that we see them using tools slightly to an extent. They tend to rely more on their body parts, etc., and brute force than actual tools to achieve things. But I would say they are incredibly far from figuring out how to master fire. Definitely no possibility of that happening shortly. Yeah, I think that's the simplest way to put it. I think if I had to sum it up, they are intelligent animals, but they definitely do not possess the intelligence of the fire-making skill that humans once did thousands of years ago. Quite a boisterous troop, this one. It is interesting to note some troops tend to be a bit more friendly or peaceful, whereas other ones can sometimes be quite badly behaved. I do have a feeling this troop of baboons does keep the lodge nearby on edge. Sam, you'd like to know if they can swim. They certainly can. It's not normal behavior for them. I know in Cape Town, for example, they actually swim in people's pools there in some of the wilder, more nature areas. But yeah, certainly we'll see often. We're going to leave these baboons now. There's an exciting bird waiting for us at Aldonio. It's just gone out of frame, but from what I saw, I have a hunch that it is a gabar goshawk. Those bare legs. This would be a dark morph, so not one of the more common appearances of the gabar goshawk. Very pretty, striking colors. Bird hunter of note. Such interesting things that come to Aldonio at times. I do love this waterhole.
Step into the exciting world of the original science. Next September, Master Tracker Renus Mhlongo and Wild Earth Steve Falconbridge lead a spectacular safari through the Kruger, where you'll learn to identify tracks and then trail iconic big game on foot. Days are spent immersed in the field, evenings around the fire sharing stories, from the hair-raising to the hilarious. This is the ultimate wild immersion for the nature connoisseur.
My full name is Mpho Muthusi Tikani. I grew up in Soweto. My first animal that I filmed said to dog. Okay, no, it's my first animal that I filmed, I think it was an impala. Best sighting ever, I would say it was actually this year, 2024. But it was at this Cedric when we had Muluwati and TP on a warthog kill. I think we have to cut it.
Join our expert guides at dawn for a live, immersive safari as the bush comes to life.
Found ourselves a chameleon, and look how he's changed color.
Every sunrise brings new discoveries.
Pound for pound, a leopard is one of the strongest cats around.
Ask questions, share your thoughts, and connect with nature live and in real time.
Great excitement, great happiness.
Start your day with adventure.
Feeder. Nothing concrete yet, but very exciting to see action like that so close to your house. This Gabal goshawk is looking quite peaceful, getting its bit of bathing in. Not ready to dip itself too much in the water, but it is interesting when they do eventually come down to water, or many birds of prey, when they do come down for a bit of a bathing session, they are quite calm and take their time. Tandy, you'd like to know why are female Gabal goshawks noticeably bigger than males? Now, I'm not too aware of it being so dramatic in the Gabal goshawks, for example, but I know the African goshawk, it's very noticeable. Aside just from markings, the female African goshawk, for example, is essentially double the size of a male, and if you put the two next to each other, they actually almost look like different species. But this is what you call reverse sexual dimorphism, and it's actually quite common in birds of prey. The females are larger and stronger, which helps them handle bigger prey and to protect the nest, of course, especially while raising chicks. And the males then stay smaller and lighter, which makes them faster and more agile hunters, which is perfect for catching small birds and delivering food quickly. So essentially the pair basically split the job by body type. But it is certainly an interesting adaptation that has developed in them. Quite funny seeing him stand on one leg now. He almost looks like a flamingo. I would say he's feeling quite calm and peaceful at the waterhole here today. Ray, you'd like to know if he's hunting or just chilling. In this pose, he is definitely just taking it easy and chilling. Funny place for him to relax, but he obviously feels quite safe here at the water's edge. Generally, you see them roosting in a bush or a tree nearby the waterhole. Generally, a double benefit there because they can rest quietly, and at a moment's notice they can strike or catch any birds that are coming down to drink. You can maybe assume this fellow has recently eaten, so he's not too worried about hunting at the moment. But generally, you will see a Gabal goshawk quite close to a waterhole. That is their bread and butter of their hunting strategy. still find it very entertaining that he's balancing on one leg. But it's quite nice to spend time with quite an unobtrusive bird of prey like this. They're not often easily seen, and I think more so having one spend so much time at the water's edge like this is quite a treat. Okay, well, I don't think our goshawk's going to be up to too much more. We're going to pop on over to Tau and see what's going on there. Well, this is a very striking and beautiful sight. Plenty of elephants coming down to drink, and we've got a few zebra and wildebeest in the background. Plenty of water birds as well. Too many to mention. I see a few spurwing geese, I believe. A coot. Possibly a shell duck. I don't think it's an Egyptian goose. Of course, the elephants are taking up the spotlight at the moment. Lots of play going on with the smaller individuals in the mud. Certainly looking quite warm in that part of the world. But everyone is having a grand old time and splashing the mud all over. So Nele, you're asking if elephants ever pause mid-drink just to stare into the reflection. I don't necessarily think so. While elephants are capable of recognizing their reflection, it's been tested with mirrors, etc., I I don't think they necessarily stop mid-drink to look at their reflection in the water. They might do, but at the same time, they're well aware of what it is. They can recognize it as themselves. You generally see elephants more pausing at a waterhole, but they're actually actively listening to those low frequency rumbles from other elephants in the area, or communicating or listening in that regard. I would say that's generally when you see them pause like that. I'm definitely of the opinion that is actually a moorhen, a common moorhen, and I'm pretty sure that's a shell duck. It does not look like an Egyptian goose to me. That head is far too white. It's amazing how quickly the elephants can move in and how quickly they can slide out. Zebra and wildebeest are also looking quite happy. I think I also see a few wildebeest calves there. They're just lying down and resting. Well, we're gonna pop around again. We're gonna go back to Lentor. I think there's some action waiting for us there. As we do that, I see some spoonbills sneaking out at the back there. They're not going anywhere anyway. More baboon action. It is quite interesting though. I do feel like the baboons here at Lentor never stay put for too long. I think it's a rather active waterhole, so everyone approaches with great care. Kind of makes sense if you compare it to the Serengeti Explorer one. Visibility is probably quite a bit worse here. It's quite thick in the surrounding area, whereas Serengeti Explorer is quite a bit more open. There is of course some vantage points, but interesting nonetheless. One thing I always enjoy about the baboons in East Africa is how puffy their coats look. They almost look like they've been to the local parlour for a bit of a manicure and a haircut. And they certainly look a bit more regal than our Chacma baboon in the south of Africa. I feel like ours look a bit more unkempt and unneat. Lots of chaos taking place in the background, screaming and shouting. So Fiso, you'd like to know what smells are the ladies picking up from the guys that basically scream good genes to them? Well, it's not often that the females don't really rely on scent to pick a male. Males will use scent to determine if a female is an estrus. But when it comes to baboons, it's more visual cues. So a female baboon's bum goes brighter and stands out a lot more when she's an estrus. But of course, what they're looking for in a male is a sign of strength, size, power, etc. Of course, it's mainly the dominant baboon that gets the majority of the mating, so that's hard won and fought. So all females will be receptive towards him. Of course, there will be some smaller males that will get lucky on the fringes. But when it comes to baboons, visual cues are the main attractor. Bongi and Corsi, you're asking if the way the troops split and merge mostly depend on how big or spread out food patches are. Exactly. Also, of course, natural barriers like rivers, etc., that will split territories quite convincingly, or large bodies of water. But rivers or mountainous areas, that will generally be a natural boundary. But baboon troops will not necessarily they won't just merge. If two troops meet up, it's normally quite a massive fight. Can get very ugly and out of hand. But how many troops are in an area or how big they are is an indicator, or is determined by food resources in and around. So obviously an area with sparse resources will not have many baboons in the area, and the troop sizes will probably be quite limited due to the survivability. Well, baboons have moved off, as they usually do. They don't stay around for too long. But we are going to head back to Founders now. One of the giraffes popping by, also quite present, or ever present around here. We generally see them at a distance or cruising by. Sometimes they come quite close, but looking quite happy browsing away. this giraffe is certainly looking quite aware. You can see it's a female giraffe with those fluffy horns on top. Just double checking myself, it actually might be a male. I just don't know if it's maybe a young male. Hence why there's still a bit of fluffiness on top there. He hasn't worn off the hair from his ossicones or horns. A bit undecided there. Well, our giraffe has given us the slip. It's actually quite quiet here at Mantis. I'm going to head on back to Lentor again. It's quite productive there at the moment. Now, one of the other residents, I think we've seen this grey heron many moons ago. It was roosting in a tree one session. You can see it's a bit of a younger bird, but I think quite a productive spot for it to hunt. I think there's plenty of amphibians, and probably there might be fish in here, I'm not too sure, but we often see hammerkop around this waterhole quite a bit, so they're also either capitalizing on possibly fish or frogs, etc.
What is the wild really saying? Over 4 unforgettable days in the Cylinder Spillway, you'll step into the ancient art of tracking. Guided by master tracker Renius Mhlongo, expect sharp humor, deep knowledge, and stories from a lifetime of tracking. Less classroom and more boots, laughter, and wild discovery in Africa's great wilderness landscapes.
At Wild Earth, we believe every story has the power to create change. That's why we've launched the Wild Earth Impact Foundation, a non-profit dedicated to conservation and social impact. By showcasing conservation stories, we can change lives, protect nature, and empower communities. We have partnered with Empowers Africa to accept tax-deductible donations from US donors. Your donation will help fund critical programs that support our mission. Join us and be part of the change.
My full name is Emojis. Best part of my job is coming to see nature. Worst part of my job is logging. That's the worst thing ever, because you have to log amount of footage. You sit in front of that computer and yeah, you think of deleting the footage, but no, they need the footage. If I went to camel, probably a soccer player. I know some people don't believe me, but I'm very good, and I'm very fast.
Join our expert guides at dawn for a live, immersive safari as the bush comes to life.
Found ourselves a chameleon, and look how he's changed colour.
Every sunrise brings new discoveries.
Pound for pound, a leopard is one of the strongest cats around.
Ask questions, share your thoughts, and connect with nature live and in real time.
Great excitement, great happiness.
Start your day with adventure.
Certainly is very interesting seeing actually how deep Lentor is. I actually thought it was quite a shallow waterhole, but seeing the heron wade in kind of visualizes that depth firsthand. Jacob, you'd like to know why some birds have a powder for preening and some have an oil. So yeah, your birds generally keep their feathers in a good condition in one of two ways, the powder or the oil, or oily-like substance. Most birds make use of an oil from the preening gland, which is at the base of the tail, and they spread that over their feathers to keep them waterproof and flexible. Now, your birds like herons, egrets and pigeons tend to produce a fine powder down instead. This powder helps absorb dirt or slime from water and moisture, considering these birds live quite aquatic lifestyles in this example. And it's almost kind of like a talcum-like powder, but of course a natural form. But it really depends on the lifestyle and the habits of the bird. Your oily feathers are obviously great for waterproofing, while powder works better for birds that need to deal with water on a regular basis. Got quite a few seed eaters and smaller birds coming in at the back there. But yeah, Lentor is a hot spot for these smaller little birds to come drink at. I think if you're a birding fanatic, Lentor Lodge is probably one of the places to go to and spend some time at. Melissa, you'd like to know if this heron is in danger. I think he's being alert, but I don't think he's in any immediate danger. I think certainly you could see he was a bit more on edge. I was wondering if he caught something for a second. He was maybe a bit more on edge when those baboons approached at first. And but look, if he was definitely feeling in danger, he would have just flown away, etc. So I think he's quite happy, and he's obviously continued to wade deeper in, so I think he's quite satisfied with his current situation. Of course, if the baboons were very hungry, they could pose a danger and try to catch or eat the heron. I don't think it's often or commonly seen behavior, but baboons are known to eat meat on occasion. It's quite pretty to see this young bird slowly starting to come into its complete colors. I'm not sure if we're seeing a bit of his lack of experience. He seems to be haphazardly just darting at the water. There might be smaller fish swimming around, and he's attempting to just jab one. But of course, practice makes perfect. So fine-tuning his skills over time. Certainly maybe not as elegant as an adult grey heron at this point. May, you'd like to know, how do they handle slippery or spiny prey without dropping it? So generally you'll actually see them try jab or spear it. Sometimes you do see them holding it, at which point they will move away from the water and head back inland. So if they do drop it, it lands on the soil or the ground. And the benefit is still on their side. They don't have to worry about losing their prey. But yeah, you will see them try jab and poke it. Slippery prey is probably a bit easier. They just have to get a good grip and swallow it. Spiny prey needs to be arranged in such a way that the head is facing their throat, that when they swallow it, the spines are pushed down. They will, of course, try bash it a bit or try break any spines, etc. And also just wait till the fish expires from being out of the water. But they do handle it with a certain level of caution. I see we have some waterbuck that have come to join now. Bit of unsureness on the baboon's part, but everyone's looking rather peaceful. Quite interesting to only see 2 waterbuck. I must say they're both looking a little bit slim. I imagine it's a little dry at the moment. The grazing is probably not excellent. Can sadly see their ribs sticking out slightly through their coat, and their hips are also sticking out a bit. And obviously waterbuck are quite shaggy, fluffy animals, so for this to be noticeable, their condition is obviously a bit poor. But they are tough and resilient animals, and I'm sure the better times will hopefully roll in. If not, it is unfortunately the cycle of nature, and only the fittest will survive. Diego, you'd like to know how does the waterbuck's dark brown coat provide camouflage near water? Now obviously it's the assumption that water is a bright blue color, etc., and that is sometimes the case, but obviously in the habitats in which waterbuck find themselves in Africa, it's generally marshy environments, that water tends to be a bit of a browner, dirtier color. Of course they spend a fair amount of time in water, but the actual point of their coat is probably more to blend in with shadows and reeds and dark vegetation around these areas. Obviously in the height of the green season they maybe stick out a bit, but of course that also plays into their favor. They are excellent swimmers, so if there's more water, etc., or flooded areas, they can get away quite quickly. They are very proficient swimmers and they can move very quickly through water compared to cats trying to catch them. I see this baboon has come in for a bit of a close-up, having a look at its reflection. But also notably, aside from camouflage, your waterbucks rely quite a bit more on their great swimming abilities to escape danger. Unlike your kudus, etc., that specialize in staying quite still and hidden, waterbuck feel that they're safest away from predators in open marshy environments where they can move quite rapidly, and obviously see predators coming, hopefully, but if they need to escape, they're also in their element. So camouflage is not, I wouldn't say it's their number one adaptation. Cassie, I do agree, it's quite a beautiful and entertaining scene. Also, of course, love all the birding opportunities at Lentor here, but quite nice to see so much action. Anyway, there's a few more mysteries that have come down to drink at Oldonyo, so we're going to pop over there. Oh, ever-present giraffes. And it's nice to see the eland again. I haven't seen them for quite a while. They're also only in drips and drabs, so it's quite nice to see a large herd of them here today. You can definitely see the change of seasons taking place here at Aldonio. It's definitely getting a bit more dusty and drier. But such is the way of the eternal cycle. I must say the animals are looking in very good condition, man. Everyone's looking quite happy and relaxed and well fed. It's always funny, it's as if the eland are very quick to disappear once we start watching them. But of course they're animals that don't rely too much on moisture, so once they've got their drink of water, it's back to feeding schedule and there's no time to waste. This male giraffe seems to be sniffing at this female quite intently. I think he's checking to see if she's possibly an estrus, and if he can attempt to mate with her. You can see the size difference quite dramatically here. He is towering above her. It would appear that he has decided she's not an estrus, so he'll carry on with his own agenda. And what gave it away was him doing that Fleming grimace, where they lift their lip and they pass the scent particles over the Jacobson's organ to smell better. Kind of changes the airflow when they do that. So you see a lot of antelope cats doing it. Also you don't see elephants doing it. Sana, you'd like to know, how does the giraffe's estrus cycle length compare to that of other large herbivores? So, a giraffe's estrus cycle is generally about 2 weeks long, roughly 14 to 15 days according to literature. Kind of short compared to some of your other large herbivores in this case. So cows or buffalo generally closer to 21 days, and elephants tend to be much longer at around 3 or 4 months. So your giraffes essentially come into estrus fairly often, but because their gestation is quite long, the actual births are still spaced very far apart. So frequent cycles, but long pregnancies. So it may frequently take place, but you'll find that there's a greater time spent being pregnant. Ilana, you'd also like to know why giraffe mating is usually brief. Now, just adding to that, most mammal mating takes place very briefly and shortly. It tends to be short but repetitive or often. You see it with elephants, it's not a long thing. Antelope, it's always a very quick affair. It's not a long drawn out situation, and if you think about it, it makes sense. If you spent a lot of time being vulnerable and mating, the predators would be able to make an easy snack of you, so it's not something you should waste your time doing if it's the sole purpose of spreading your genes, but you get eaten in the process. And also at the same time, some animals' estrus cycle is quite a short window, so getting the job done quickly is much more important. This bull is certainly expressing interest in the female. You can see him sniffing her again. I don't know if this female is necessarily enjoying the attention. Seems to be playing a bit of hard to get. Judy, you were saying a male giraffe's penis is about 1 meter. This can't be true. Now, I cannot admit that I've attempted to measure one, but I have certainly seen mating giraffes, and them being large animals, it is quite a large body part. Maybe speaking anatomically, it's those dimensions, but yeah, it's part and parcel for the size of the animal, I guess. Aisha, you'd like to know, why do males test multiple females in the herd before focusing on one? Well, it comes down to him testing the scent, etc., just making sure, seeing which ones truly are on estrus or if she's past her estrus, all of the above, before he gets distracted or wastes his effort on a cow that might not be receptive, and another bull might take this opportunity. So that's why they spend quite a bit of time making sure and smelling and sniffing. Of course, if there are multiple females in estrus, I'm sure the bull will try his luck with most of them. Anyway, the elephant has chased off our giraffes, but we're gonna, oh, there they come back. But nonetheless, we're gonna go over to Elephant Pan for a bit of a change of scenery. Certainly looking very green and wet here at Elephant Pan. There's been significant rainfall throughout Botswana, and just from my memory it looks like a large portion of this this pan is underwater, or the water has swelled quite a bit. Normally the section left of the elephants is actually exposed ground, so very indicative of the heavy rainfall that the area has been receiving. I'm certainly not jealous. We had more than enough rain the other day in the Kruger region. It's unfortunately caused a bit of damage inside the park, but everyone is recovering and fixing up what they can, but yeah, unfortunately quite damaging effects. It was quite cool to see that bull making a bit of an impromptu jacuzzi there at the water inlet. Omar, you'd like to know if elephants sometimes drink seawater in coastal areas. Now, obviously there's not a lot of areas where elephants come into contact with the sea. There is a few handful of spots. Obviously it would have definitely been more before the distribution was impacted by humans. I think they may drink a little bit, but not too much. Obviously seawater is not great for ingestion. It dehydrates you, etc. So maybe if they're looking for a bit of nutrients from salt, or salts for example, they might drink a little bit, but I think very little. And generally in those areas, one place that comes to mind for me is Gabon. I think they would rely more on some of the inland swamps and pans for those type of minerals, not necessarily seawater. But I do know in the, for example, Gabon again, buffaloes tend to graze on the shores of these, or on the beaches there, because the foliage tends to have a bit of salt on it from the sea spray, and that's one way that they can pick up the nutrients from that. Rick, you're asking what lets elephants close their nostrils underwater to prevent water inhalation. Now in aquatic mammals, whatever closes the nostril would obviously be a muscle, almost acts like a valve. But for elephants it's even more simple. They just close their mouth or throat to not let water pass in, and they stick their trunk above the water. Obviously also to an extent it's gravity, but there'll also be muscles that stop the flow of water into their lungs or their respiratory system. But generally when you see an elephant entering very deep water, they will use their trunk as a snorkel. They don't swim with it underneath the water.
Join me at Mabula Private Game Reserve from 6 to 11 May 2026 for a 5-night private safari for just 6 guests. Just incredibly exciting. Enjoy guided walks, take part in rhino conservation efforts, and explore Mabula's beautiful landscapes from open plains to rocky hills, alive with birds, animals, and vibrant plant life.
Join our expert guides at dawn for a live, immersive safari as the bush comes to life.
Found ourselves a chameleon, and look how he's changed color.
Every sunrise brings new discoveries.
Pound for pound, a leopard is one of the strongest cats around.
Ask questions, share your thoughts, and connect with nature live and in real time.
Great excitement, great happiness.
Start your day with adventure.
I'm scratching my head a bit at that starling. Now we've got the superb starling again. That's an easy one. Also a cutthroat finch. Briefly looking, I'll continue my search, but yeah, it doesn't. One of the birds, it looks a bit like it is the greater blue-eared starling, but that I had certainly has me questioning that. And that's quite typical. Now that I'm trying to figure out what starling that was, it's not come back to show us again. But relatively simple features. It's purely just the eye that really stood out to me. Lydia, this definitely is a birding paradise. I think if you were spoilt enough to sit in a birding hide, or at the hide here, you would be able to take magnificent birding pictures, or bird pictures as they came down to drink. It's a grey-headed sparrow, and what looks like a red-billed aquila. Let's see, we've got some beautiful firefinches hopping around here. I was enamored with my search, but if I'm not mistaken, and it's not a starling I'm familiar with, that was Ruppel's starling. That's my opinion. If anyone disagrees or is more familiar, I'd be open to suggestions, but I believe that's what our mysterious starling was. Quite a beautiful bird. Chris, I'm not necessarily sure if they'll fish here. I'm of the assumption that there may be. Obviously this is a man-made pond, so they would need to handle filtration and the like if the fish were to survive here. I think if that did not take place, it would become quite stagnant, but the water obviously looks very clean, and there's plenty of life around here, so there is certainly a possibility there are some fish. I think also the fact that you see the hammerkop and the heron investing time here, there is probably a bit of a fish population. Of course, also adding fish to an environment like this only helps it function better. That's the word I'm looking for. Certainly some interesting calls coming from the starlings all around here. It's somewhere in between noisy and musical, but quite a nice sound to listen to. There's our grey-headed sparrows and more firefinches. Looks like a mixture of red-billed firefinch and possibly Jamisons. And these, of course, are the northern grey-headed sparrow. Down here in South Africa or Southern Africa, we don't really get them. We get the southern grey-headed sparrow, and they look rather similar, but to the seasoned birder, you could probably pick it out. Jason, you'd like to know if a finch, a canary is a type of finch. So yeah, it is a type of finch that belongs to the finch family, just like most seed eaters do. The domestic canary that everyone tends to know of or keep as a pet comes from your Atlantic canary, which is a small wild finch from the Canary Islands. They look very different to if you ever see some of the canaries that you get in the bush in Africa. We have quite a few different species, but yeah, they look quite a bit more different. Obviously, the pet trade canary is also quite far removed from its wild ancestors to an extent, but yeah, they do fit into that finch category. Of course, the ones in the African bush, although they've got pretty songs, I wouldn't say it would compete to the more domestic canaries or that Atlantic canary. They can probably sing quite a bit better. And ours also tend to be quite a bit more, they've got hues of yellow in them that tend to be a bit more brown or drab coloured. But anyway, I'm sure we've covered most of the birds here, and I think my birding is overwhelming everyone, so we're going to head over to Tembe for a few big and hairy animals. Of course, it wouldn't be a visit to the Tembe elephant camp without an elephant in front of us. From what I can see, there's not too many elephants today. I see there's another large bull now approaching. That's interesting. Something's sent this guy running. Possibly an elephant wading across. Yeah, there's our reason. This fellow came charging across the pond, and that guy decided to get out of there. Maybe a bit intimidating for him. Looks like some elephant yoga taking place across the pond there. Stretching out a bit. Probably find the elephants have been feeding on quite a bit of fruit the last while. Everything's fruiting after all the rains we've been having down here in southern Africa. And quite interestingly enough, when elephants eat too much fruit, their digestive tract seems to work overtime. And normally I'm quite unopposed, or I enjoy the smell of elephant dung. It's quite a earthy African smell, but once they've ingested copious amounts of marulas or other fruit, it's I don't know, it's quite a sour, foul smelling smell to me. And yeah, it's quite an interesting change. Some warthogs there. But yeah, plenty of elephants milling about here, as they often do. So Valeria, you'd like to know, why do elephant calves, suckle for up to 2 years and sometimes longer? Well, of course, they are quite bigger animals, so that nutrition, etc., and that development is spread over a fairly longer period of time. But it's because they do grow slowly and their energy demands are quite high, so they require the high protein that comes from milk. It's quite important for brain development, etc., and it gives them reliable nutrition while they're still learning what they can and can't eat in the bush. But it also adds to the part of bonding and comfort and security in the herd when it's mother. So you often see older calves that are already eating vegetation or still occasionally nurse for reassurance until eventually their mothers wean them. But I think the two are quite closely knit between nutrition and social development. It's quite interesting. There was one elephant, I thought he would maybe come through this area. He seemed to be causing a bit of chaos, and it's not unusual to see an elephant or two at must at this time of year. It can of course occur at any time, but in my experience it's generally about this time of year when you tend to bump into elephant bulls and must. Kai, you had a question regarding African elephant ears and brought in some fancy maths, but you're stating that African elephant ears are up to 2 meters squared while Asian ones are smaller. What drives the size difference? So something we've covered once or twice in previous shows, but if you look at the habitat that African savanna elephants live in, it's quite hot and much drier habitat to where Asian elephants live. They live in the jungle and humid areas. So African elephants spend a lot of time flapping their ears, which helps cool down their bodies or cool down the blood flowing through them. And those massive ears act like a radiator. And of course, if you look at the two different habitats, your African savanna elephant tends to live in a much more open type of habitat compared to that of a Asian elephant. Now, if you lived in a very overgrown jungly habitat, big ears would not be a good adaptation. They'll get in the way, they'll get caught on things, torn, damaged, injured. So it would be a natural adaptation for them to get smaller, and you see this in African forest elephants. They are much smaller than their savanna counterparts. So quite simply, those are your two reasons. Jamal, you'd also like to know why only male African elephants typically grow large tusks while females often have small or none. Couple of reasons. Males obviously fight and battle for dominance with one another. So just due to that, they'll have kind of got a bit more of a need for tusks. Obviously, it's not a prerequisite. Animals without tusks are still capable of fighting and tussling. And obviously, it's also driven by their larger size and the hormones. Testosterone and all those type of hormones will drive tusk growth, whereas females do not, are genetically smaller and also do not possess those hormones that push tusk growth. So in certain circumstances you can see females with very long tusks, but they tend to be thin and small and straight, and yeah, it's more just a function of their different lifestyles between the sexes. Certainly always such a peaceful scene here at Tembe Elephant Park, between the prolific bird life, probably also the fact that there's such a substantial amount of permanent water here. It really lends itself to the setting, but you can always count on a few antelope and elephants to be around. Often find myself watching this camera in my spare time during the week while working. Very peaceful scene to have in the background. Anthony, it certainly is lovely to see elephants with such magnificent tusks. Of course, the Tembe elephant population itself was one of the last 4 remaining wild elephant populations at a point in South Africa. Your populations being Addo, the Knysna elephant, Tembe, and Kruger, if I'm not mistaken. It's either Kruger or Thule, but anyway, nonetheless. So yeah, your Tembe elephants were one of the few last remaining wild elephant populations that didn't need to be reintroduced. And what was quite unique to this gene pool was very prolific tusked individuals were present in this gene pool. So if one goes to Tembe, you're often graced in the presence of these large bulls that are quite docile and very friendly. It's a very awesome experience. There was a a beautiful tusker many years ago called Isilo, and I think there's a few tuskers or a few bulls heading in that direction, but Isilo was truly magnificent, and to my knowledge no one has approached or beaten that yet, but maybe in a few years' time. I think it's nearly been 10 years since he passed away, so it has been quite a bit of time.
Even a hyena coming into the action as well now. Oh my word! She's stalking the hyena now. Leopard, hyena, lion, all together in one shot. Oh. This is action-packed.
Full name is Maxine Gaines. Most people that know me really well call me Max. I'm a mum. I have two boys. One is 16 years old and one is 14 years old. I'm a very, very proud mama of my two boys. I've just always been passionate about leopards. I'm passionate about their conservation. I'm just passionate about everything to do with leopards. I love them.
Join our expert guides at dawn for a live, immersive safari as the bush comes to life.
Found ourselves a chameleon, and look how he's changed colour.
Every sunrise brings new discoveries.
Pound for pound, a leopard is one of the strongest cats around.
Ask questions, share your thoughts, and connect with nature live and in real time.
Great excitement, great happiness.
Start your day with adventure.
Can you hear that? The wild is calling.
So they stalk through open grassy areas quite carefully. Of course, they've got a very keen eyesight, most of your birds do. And they stalk along looking carefully, also in a way essentially flushing anything out. If we look at their design, very tall, long legs designed for walking, it also kind of in a way makes them slightly snake proof. The skin around their legs is incredibly tough. So yeah, they kind of walk through the grass, flushing prey, and their keen eyesight will also help them detect any movement while they're walking around. We can now see those short stubby toes compared to most other raptors. Such beautiful birds. Definitely a treat for today's Sunday session. You can see how quickly they cover ground when they've got somewhere to go. They don't hold back. It's a very nice surprise. Just one lonely giraffe left. It's amazing how quickly the action can come and go. Oh, Freya, you were mentioning how, or you were asking, why do giraffes sometimes kneel instead of just splaying their legs? It's not necessarily behavior I've seen. We're just going to head over to Lentor, but yeah, to conclude, when giraffes drink, I have never seen them kneeling. When you do see them kneeling down, it's because they want to lie down and rest. But not common behavior to see them kneeling down at a waterhole like that. I think especially with the possibility of lions around, etc., it would be quite a foolish mistake, because when they splay their legs, they can get away much quicker. Got some wonderful superb starlings again. Back at bird watching central, of course. I really do love the colours on these birds. So striking and attention grabbing, essentially. I think the more I watch the birds at Lentor, the more it ends up on my wish list for one day. But I think overall Kenya's a country I would love to go bird watching. I think there's a lot of interesting birds to see. It's certainly exciting when you look at certain birds and you don't have a clue what you're looking at. And you know it's a good destination to go visit. You were asking, why do giraffes often wait for others or other animals to drink first before taking their turn? It comes down to their alertness and their vulnerability when they're drinking. So I think they like to make extra sure that it is safe. And while they're drinking, they obviously don't want to be caught up in a stampede or trip over anything or have anything knock into them. A giraffe that falls over or falls onto the ground is easy pickings for a lion. And that's pretty much the end of it if it is knocked off of its feet. So that's generally why you see them being very careful. And there is footage of a giraffe being attacked by an elephant at El Doño, so hence why they're also quite careful. They don't want to get injured, etc. So now you'd like to know, how does cooperative breeding work in superb starling groups? So obviously it's not unique to them alone. There's quite a few birds that breed cooperatively, and of course the short answer is it increases the success rate of raising offspring. And like the saying goes, it takes a family to raise it, it takes a village to raise a child. So not just a family unit, but by working together offspring is raised. But yeah, so this is superb starlings will generally have a dominant pair that breeds, but it's not just them that raise the bird, the chick. It will be the whole group that helps. So it increases food provision, protection, and also energy expenditures much less across the whole group, because you don't have just two or a pair of birds looking for food the whole time. And also the older siblings or previously raised chicks also get experience, and that makes them more successful parents when they do eventually breed. So yeah, basically just divides the workload essentially. Quite nice to see a squirrel doing his thing. Looks like he's eating a few acacia pods. And the sparrows are definitely out in force at the moment. Once again though, thanks to everyone for joining us today at Live at the Waterhole. Quite an excellent session, some very good bird watching. I was quite chuffed, and always some good old mammal sightings. I hope everyone enjoys the afternoon drive, and I hope it's a great week further. I'm sure I'll see you in the not too distant future.